I didn't want to be this owner that sat in the way of my employees being able to grow.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's very challenging when you have an operation that is growing. And maybe to your point, you haven't set what the parameters are. You haven't set enough of the processes because you're just moving so fast.
Yeah.
So I always wanted my team to feel like they had runway. And so I knew I had to get out of the way. I knew I had to shed responsibilities. So it's pushing off some of those responsibility pieces and really coaching up my employees to say, I want you to have ownership of this. This is your meeting. I want you to get what you need out of it. I want you to tackle XYZ that we're going to do. You're going to run the meeting. I'm not going to say anything.
But realize they've never done it before.
And be okay with that.
Yeah.
But they've sat in enough and they've seen me do it.
Yeah.
That's where
doing it is so different, right?
Yes. Now it's like, okay, you've learned, you've learned through visual. Now you need to go ride the bike. Here you go. Jump on.
That's the hard one for men is giving up some of those things and letting somebody else do it, because it's not going to be exactly how you would have done it.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be okay with the results.
Yes. 20 to 30 sub-trades per job.
$35,000 a
You
week.
will be licensed 10 years next year.
You've mastered the trade. Now you need to master the business. Welcome to The Build Line, the show where we talk about what it actually takes to build a business in construction. This podcast is not about theory or hype. It's about real conversations with real operators. What is working, what is not, and what we all wish someone would have told us sooner.
OG time. We are talking about developing your management team and what that looks like. I think this is a topic that you and I have chatted about a lot. And I think that we both have experienced this and you probably longer than us on building that team and what that looks like.
Yeah, I get to see it. I get to see you guys. I get to see 20 other general contractors and all that and see what they have, and big and small.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's I got a lot to say about what I think coming from an outsider looking in, but where do you want to start with that?
I guess what would you say takes to have a strong leader and a strong leader on the team, right? Because most of the time you're taking direction for whoever we designate as the GC, as the leader.
A strong leader needs a strong leader above him, right? Everybody needs somebody. What I think we go upon is we always emphasize leading the team, right? We're leading, like I have a guy and he leads our team. But we don't talk about a lot is when somebody, an outsider from maybe your company or somebody else, comes in and bungles that, and how that person reacts to at that moment, right? So, and that's where I see these guys fall apart. Is like that we've set them up in our process of how we do it with our brand standard, and moving down the road, we're going to do A, B, and C, and then somebody throws a kink in there. How can they react to that? And that's where I think the team leader, the project manager, whatever you want to call them, that's where they show their colors, how they can react to that diversity over and over again. Because every time it's different. It's not the same. Like in drywall, we run into the same problems, but not all the time. Like, man, you get different project manager throwing a different kink or a different homeowner or whatever. And so how they learn to deal with that, I think, is super important.
Yeah, I think the pressure from this industry and how you react to those situations like you're describing really, really shows if you're going to be a leader, right? Because if a client's mad, something happened, the demo sub flooded the bathroom upstairs, what's the response from the team? What's the response from the project manager? It's probably going to be that we're going to go have a stern conversation with the demo guy, right? How are you presenting that to the client? How are you dealing with it after the fact? What's the tone that you're setting to the demo sub? Hey, now that you've flooded the bathroom downstairs and now we have to demo additional sheetrock and we're going to have insulation that's going to have to be replaced. We have door frames that are now going to have to be replaced. You're going to pay for that, right? Is it that conversation of it's a very stern, you're going to pay for that? Or is it a F you, this is crap, like, you guys are idiots, I'm going to back charge you thousands of dollars. Like, what does that mean? Because that's going to set the tone for the rest of your team and how they're going to treat the sub who now has to come back to fix what they screwed up. They have to now, mitigate.
Well, one might say, is that their responsibility as a project manager now to have that conversation with the subcontractor owner? Or does that pass up to you?
That's a good question.
Hey, this happened. you now got to call Jerry.
Yeah.
Is what, because I also see a lot of this, like you hire this project manager and you go, they're running my company.
Yeah.
They're going to take over. They're going to do that. If they were good at that, they'd have did it on their own already.
Yeah.
So where does the line draw, and where does the line draw on that, and if you have somebody good enough to be able to manage that conversation, then that's great. But a lot of them can't.
Yeah, you have to have, to your point, you do have to have those layers within that and what the hierarchy is of that. If Janae, my project manager, has it happen on her job, she's going to set the tone of, hey, we're going to need to bring Heather in on this, right? The role I sit in is operations manager. Eventually, if that role gets backfilled, it'd be whoever's above Janae and is her boss. Hey, we're going to have to bring in the next level up of management to talk about this, to review it, to look at what that back charge is going to be. What's this going to cost? What's it's going to look like for the schedule, right? She's going to need to handle the emotions for the owner because that's ultimately her job, right? But in our company, it's always the standard of if we've got to back charge somebody, it typically involves myself. If that goes to that, because the project manager needs to be able to preserve that relationship with the sub, right? They're going to have to keep moving forward. If there's a situation where I'm the project manager of that job and I sit in this role as owner and the operations manager, then you're going to get both sides. You're going to get me where it's like, hey, we're going to have to back charge you, but I'm going to talk to your guy when we're out there and be like, hey, it happens, right? Yeah. There's mistakes. How are we going to move on? So you're going to get both sides.
And do you think, the success with Janae today, do you think that comes with Janae just being a great all-around person, but also how many years of you going through a lot of different project managers? I mean, that's one thing people ask about Tankersley, this or that, and how they get these good project managers, and I say, well, they didn't hold on to the shitty ones.
Yeah.
You've gone through a lot of them. Not that they're all shitty people, but they weren't good at that particular job for your brand. But that's a learning thing, right? If you don't get rid of the C player, you'll never find that A player.
Yeah, I think, the thing that we had to learn the hard way, and I say it because I don't think anybody comes in owning a business knowing exactly how to hire. Then where do you get training for that? How do you know what that is?
Yeah.
And that's been a lot, to your point, of getting on the bike, crashing, falling off, picking it up, starting over again. And we've gone through a lot of PMs, and we've had a lot of people that have worked here, to your point, that didn't cut it, and they didn't make it. And I thought about this before we were putting together this podcast episode and what that looks like. And I think for us now, the standard that we have is that skill is trainable. I can teach you to be a good PM. I could teach you how to use my software. I can teach you our process. You have to be hungry and you have to be willing to learn. And you might not be the most polished person. You might not have the perfect resume. But if you're hungry and you want to learn, I can get you to be there. And I think that is consistently what has come across for us. And when I look at all the people that are on the team that have been successful on our team, it's because you've wanted it and you've put the work in and you've shown us that you want to do it our way. And I think that has been the key for us.
What do you think about the hiring of the Janae versus bringing up an old carpenter?
I think that both have their place. I think you can. The hardest challenge I found for our process and our company and our system is that the old dog doesn't want to learn the new trick.
Yeah.
They don't.
He wants to not work, but really doesn't have what it takes to lead, kind of.
Correct. Or there's so many bad habits that I can't do it.
Yeah.
And I've just found within our company culture, I need you to know enough to be dangerous, but not enough that you think you know more than me.
Yeah. We talked about you don't need to know how to build the wall.
I mean, a little bit. It's helpful.
Yeah, but not every little trick, And,
I don't need you to know what hold down is this, and I don't need you to know what the shear value is. I don't need you to know that.
Yeah.
I need you to understand the sequence. I need you to understand the importance of it. I need you to understand what a hold down is, why we need to have it, and what that looks like, and how to see it on a drawing. But I can teach you that.
Yeah.
I can show you how to do that. I can show you how to read blueprints, right?
Yeah.
But I can't teach you to, be able to understand critically if you don't have that here at the right time in the right sequence. Now we're not going to pass shear. Now we're delayed on the schedule. Oh, and we might have a problem with the dollars because we didn't actually pick up the hardware in the framers package.
Yeah.
That's what I need you to understand. That's big picture.
Yeah, big picture is the hardest. That's what I see because I get a lot of phone calls last minute from these guys.
Yes.
Hey, we're ready. We're ready where?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what? And what are we doing there?
Yes.
Yeah, that one's a tough one. The biting the bullet, of how much these project managers really cost. That's what I hear people bitch about the most. They're like, oh man, and I ask them, they go, hey, how did they find? I go, what are you paying? And they'll say something that adds up to roughly 85 grand. I go, that's not enough.
Yeah.
It's not enough. You're literally telling somebody you want to step back and you take over the show and you want to give them as much as your carpenter would
Yeah.
make. So it's that they need to realize that's not enough. If you want to be on the level, that might be enough if you're if you're a B player contractor though. So that we got to keep that in mind too when we're talking to people. Everybody's not a TCI.
Yeah.
You guys have your brand standard is high. You're a luxury builder,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of builders out there that they're good people and good builders, but they just don't have a brand like yours behind them, so they can't really afford the 100,000+. So they have to, kind of choose.
Yeah. I think that that's such an individual perception and for what you need for your company. And I think if you have the right structure, if you have structure in place in your company, A players will want to come work for you,
Yeah.
right? A players don't want to join chaos. A players want to see where they're going to go, how they get there, and they're going to choose the best environment for that. I don't think A players are going to settle on I'm going to make 110 grand a year. My salary is going to go up 20%. If they can't see where they're going and they can't see the long road ahead, why would A players join your team? We might have a standard, but the standard that we have, there's also longevity to it. My employees can see what the road looks like. We're constantly talking about it. We're talking about what the next jobs are. We're talking about what's on the board. We're talking about what the revenue goal is for the year, how many jobs we need to backfill, and what size those jobs need to be.
And talking about revenue goals and things like that, that's a lot of things these guys are embarrassed or don't want to let people know.
Yeah.
And I think that's a wrong
because they
move,
don't know.
They don't. Yeah,
they don't know. That's the problem.
So-
Most contractors don't know their numbers. They don't know what they need to operate. They don't know what it actually costs them to have their employees there. So how do you expect your employee to protect your profit margin when you don't know your profit margin? You've been to my house, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we have that nice big 12-foot multi-slide panoramic door. What my favorite thing though is you can open it up and it has the full screen that goes all the way
Yeah.
across. So I can let my kids out, go swim, right? Full screen across the 12-foot opening. No problems. No bugs are getting in because right now there's all kinds of bugs in my house. But I can also open it up for the parties, indoor, outdoor. It's like full California theme. Panoramic doors, they're made in the US. You can check out all the functions and varieties, links, sizes, screen configurations, bifold, all those pieces. Check them out, panoramicdoors.com. Lots of options for you there. Probably my favorite, though, for that indoor-outdoor California room.
I love it. Panoramicdoors.com. True. That's true right there. Yeah, so what you're saying is, if you're sitting there today going, I need some help, I need some good help, you got to look inside yourself and start building your brand and all the standards and everything so you can attract the good help.
Correct.
Because who the hell would want to come work for you if you're falling apart?
Correct.
And today, that's the way people think. I don't think 20 years ago that was a thing at all. It was just, I need to paycheck and go, and this guy's running a job. But there's a lot of people I talk to that are really they're taking it seriously and looking at the company they're working for. And we go back to that word culture, and it's a real thing.
Yes.
Because I hear it. I looked at them on Instagram or wherever, and they look like somebody I want to work for.
Yeah.
So I guess you need to build your company presentable to be able to attract the talent that you want.
Yeah. We get a lot of feedback on the brand. We just did a rebrand. We changed our name. We changed our website. We changed our logo. And this idea of branding, I think, is like it's like a hipster.
Yeah.
It's a hipster piece, right? Like, what does that mean,
Yeah,
right?
we use a lot of these words, branding, culture.
Yes.
15, 20 years, nobody used that.
That
wasn't a
thing,
word here.
Right?
No.
You just showed up. You had your tools, right? How long you were going to be on the job.
Yeah.
And then you were going to go to the next job. Nobody was thinking about that client that I'm doing this job for is going to go tell 5 other people who's then going to get me the next job, right? Like, they're not thinking like that. Like, that shift has been a change in this industry looking at things on a whole more bigger picture. The industry has to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for us, and what Steve and I have been pushing for and what we've been advocating for is changing that narrative in this industry. We saw the need when we started our company because it had such a terrible reputation.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's interesting sitting in the seat that we have for the last 10 years. And maybe we're in this echo chamber and people just tell us all the things that we want to hear. I don't know. But it seems to me when you look at the industry as a whole and you look at our market, any of the other markets, we talk to other builders in other areas, that shift has really taken place in the
Oh,
last 10
I could
years.
see it. I mean, 14 years ago, I started and I was like, oh, I'm going to, before I actually started, oh, I want to do tracks of houses or big customs or whatever the deal
Hmm.
is, right? And I started doing remodels like we all kind of start doing. And I saw this area that was like, oh, these guys are just running around like crazy. If I could just be a little professional, I'll kill it.
Yeah.
And it happened.
Yes.
And this is the niche, and it's like it was struggling so bad. And for a lot of years, I didn't see anybody doing what I was doing. And then all of a sudden, guys like you popped up, and a little bit here, a little bit there. Mac out in Davis, they were doing it. They were one of the originals, but
Hmm.
there's very few. And you guys are starting to come out of the woodworks, and it's nice. It's refreshing.
Yes.
It's very cool.
It is. And it's interesting having this platform now and having a podcast. It's brought that out even more. I can't tell you after the last episode drop how many phone calls I got or emails that I got, Steve got, I know you did,
Yeah.
of people just saying, hey, I love what you guys have to say and what you're doing. And I love that you guys are putting it out there for us to listen to. And
Yeah.
it's crazy because it's like, you don't know who's listening to this, but it's like you hear it and you hear other people, then I'm going to go do that. I'm going to go elevate. I'm going to make the industry better. And so I think that, big picture and back to the topic of this episode is that that's leadership, right?
Yeah.
Because it's coming from what we're doing for the industry and then what we're doing for our own companies, right? And it's just elevating everybody in general.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you got to change your mindset. If you're going to be a construction business owner and you're going to be in the residential slums,
The
as
slumming
they
it.
call it, you guys, you got to elevate your brain.
Yeah.
You got to get out of your head and just really try to build something. It doesn't have to look like what we're doing, but you need to build something that has structure, and you'll attract the right people, and you'll be successful because when you have those right people behind you or with you standing on the line, you feel great. You feel like you can conquer the world.
Mhm.
You'll be taking on jobs you didn't want to take on last year. You couldn't. You're like, ooh, I don't know if I can. That'll give you the confidence to really burn through society. Um, but it starts in your head. It
Yeah.
starts with you.
Yeah.
So take a deep look in the mirror and start building yourself, and it'll build into your business and brand, and you'll build a team around that.
I saw a quote or I heard a quote on a podcast and I had written it down because it's so true. Owners who stop developing start decaying. How is your brand going to grow bigger and how are you going to have that inspiration to move forward if you're not pouring into yourself to then pour into your team?
Yeah. Well, it goes back to keeping up. What we always talk about, keeping up with new education.
Yeah.
Going to these seminars and all this stuff, right?
Listening to this
listen
podcast,
to this
listen to other
podcast.
people who have
Everybody,
done this.
how many podcasts do we share between us, or how many Steve shared to
Yeah,
us?
that we send around between the three of us.
Yeah, I mean, you send me one, I'll send somebody else, I'll listen to it, and it's like that, and might be a 60-minute, whatever. And if you take 3 minutes out of it, that's great. And if you do one a day, you got an hour's worth of good information for free.
Yes. Yeah.
And if you keep that routine of getting all the good new stuff and building, you'll blink and all of a sudden you'll be a different person.
Yeah. No, it's so true. I think we get caught up sometimes in the like you were mentioning, like the quick hires who you think, like you hear it on a podcast and you're like, I need that guy,
Yeah.
right? And you're like, I'm going to go hire that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there are things that you could take from that. Having experienced ourselves, I think we as well look at it as I could just, go hire this person and this is what the manual says I'm going to do. Mac over there in Davis, they have a operations manager. I need an operations manager. I'm going to go do that. TCI has this format. I'm going to go do that.
Yeah.
And as much as I'm like, yes, listen to it, educate it, right? Make sure you're tailoring it to what your company needs. Though.
Right. That's where we need to. That's 100%. 100%. Make sure it's for what you need, whether you're a general contractor or a subcontractor, because we don't have the stuff that you have, or we don't need all these. I don't have a controller.
No.
I'm not big enough to have that, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, you can take a little bit of that.
Yeah. And develop that position within your company, right? We thought we needed an operations manager 2 years ago, hired somebody that I thought culturally would be a great fit. Loved him as a person, right? Absolute failure. It was a failure. Did not integrate into our process and did not integrate our system. And we hired based off of title
Mhm.
and what I knew this individual could bring to the company, having worked with them before. But what I realized though, in that position and where they sat within the company, that crews didn't respect the title.
Right.
They didn't respect the title. They
No.
respect consistency. And when you try to introduce somebody into that upper middle management that maybe didn't come from within and
Mhm.
promoted from within,
Mhm.
or just got plopped into it and did not come from any organic place, it doesn't work.
Hmm.
It doesn't work. The crews don't want to follow it. It's square peg round hole, and it didn't work.
Didn't
And we
work.
restructured and changed the org chart again,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
that's a seat that I sit in the company. Still have since I joined the team 8 years ago.
Yeah. You didn't hang on to them forever.
No, and that was hard. That was a hard hire. That was a what we thought was a strategic hire. That was a really hard let go. It was a mutual like
Yeah.
this. Hey, I don't think this is working, and that was fine, and it's great, and we're still friends. But it was hard.
Yeah. No, I'm thinking I have some guys aging out and I have one guy coming up the chain, but if he was to quit or something, I think actually I would go do that, the opposite. I would hire somebody completely out of here and young and everything. I go, yeah, I wouldn't do the bring him up thing. I would definitely pay all the money and hire
See, and
somebody.
that's what we thought we did. Paid a huge salary.
Yeah.
Thought that was what we needed, and it did not work. It didn't work for us.
Yeah, I would try it myself because I mean we're different. We're subs and we're drywall guys, so
It's
I
different. Yeah.
think I wouldn't, but I would try it.
Yeah.
But I would know right away, if it's going to work out.
Yeah.
But I think people need to try and see what works for them, right? And
They
at what
do.
stage they're at in their game. But they need to have that person. Even a lot of the gripes I hear from general contractors about subcontractors is can be solved with that middle management that they refuse to hire because they're going to do everything themselves.
Yes.
Small, from the cleanup to the just talking to your project managers and not knowing the schedules. They're just always a click behind, these subs. They're not really on top of it. They're a couple days behind because
Yeah.
they're trying to do everything.
Yeah. I
You know.
think I think I think what you're describing is essentially what we sit in with the field manager. There's the field manager and then there's the operations. And so in looking at bigger companies and other companies that Steve and I have been privileged to see their org chart, see their structure, see what they have, right? Some of them have an operations manager and a field manager. Sometimes that's one person that oversees all that. And for us, and what works well in our company is a field manager who handles the autonomy of the field. Given the fact that we self-perform work, it's like a business inside of a business, right? We have to be responsible for our self-perform work, which is a huge risk, right? Because where you lose margin the most is on your labor, right? You
True.
have
Very, very
labor-based,
true.
right? So you have to have somebody who can sit in that role and understand what you have for labor dollars, what you have for labor hours, right? Can make production happen on the labor side. And then there's this other side of the project management side that we rely on our PMs and our operations manager to oversee, which is all the other costs. That's how we segregate it within our company.
And that's a billable position.
That's a billable position.
So that's another thing. When they're building their team, they have to go, oh, this is a billable position.
Yes.
Because that's the first thing they say is, oh, how am I going to afford it, right? You got to bill for it.
Correct.
So
Because
which means
they're
you
at
got
a-
to be able to learn how to sell the work at a little higher dollar than you did last year if you're going to hire that person.
Correct. Is that a cost of goods sold? Cost of goods sold is, would I need that position, or is that attributed to, if I didn't have a job, would that person exist in my company? If you didn't have a job, would you have a field manager? If you didn't have any labor, you wouldn't have a field manager.
Right.
So it's actually costing you money to have that person on your job. So yes, to your point, what's my combined crew rate if my field manager has to oversee 2 of my guys, right? What are we billing at hourly, right? What's your billable rate? Do you know that?
Yeah, I know it.
And then to the bigger point is my field manager then knows, okay, we have X amount of hours that we need to go install, trim, doors, put on door hardware, whatever that is. But he knows what the dollars are to go do that. He knows the hours that we have to go do that. He has the crew composite of what we need to go do that. And he owns that.
Yeah.
And it's very transparent. In order to make margin on this job, these are the hours that we have. And we're sharing that across the board. and we're going to make X amount of money on the job.
Yeah.
And we're talking about that because I need him to protect that margin. How's he going to be responsible for that if
Well,
I don't provide him that info?
it helps him protect the job for next year.
Yes.
Because if those margins aren't hit, he might not have a job. A lot of people might not.
Correct.
Might have to restructure, figure it out, right?
Correct.
Yeah, you and a couple other that have started doing that, I can see the real change. They fired a lot of guys in-house because they were bleeding, and they go, well, I'm going to rely on these subs, and because that's a fixed price for the most part.
If you're doing it right and you're bidding it ahead of time, yes.
Yep, it's fixed price. So, and I think that's smart. I do. If you, man, your in-house labor could eat you alive.
That's your biggest risk.
That is just wild. The guy came up after a NARI meeting a couple months ago and started talking to me, and he's like, how many guys? And the general contractor is like 12 guys. And I'm like, what? And I see him, things that he's done, and I go, he's doing all these trades that he shouldn't be doing.
Yes.
Which means he's not hiring full tile setters and drywall guys. It's some guys that know how to do it. So
a little bit of everything. But are you actually making money on that? I think that people feel, my experience when I see people that do that and they do everything, or they do 75% of it is self-perform. And it's like, okay, number one, do you do that well? And do you make money at that? Just because we have finished carpenters on our team, we found that we're not the best at doing cabinets because we're not as fast as the cabinet guys who produce the shop drawings and they install them every day. So do I make money on cabinet install? Well, yeah. Do I make a good margin on cabinet install as I do putting up doors and trim? No. Right? And so we know that. We track it across jobs. And then we'll make a decision if we're going into something, are we going to self-perform the cabinet install? Yes or no? And so we know we can make those decisions before we bid a project to a client. And then we know, okay, is that going to actually be able to make us money?
And this comes from the last 8 years or so of analyzing every job and finding out where it goes. Yeah.
Yes. And knowing our numbers and knowing what that looks like, right?
Yeah.
We job cost everything, every single labor dollar, every single hour. And we're reviewing it on a 2-week basis.
Yeah. I just had it the other day. I walked out of a house and I go, man, that's nice trim in there. You guys were doing all this stacked stuff. And he goes, last job we'll ever do like that. They were so far over on their labor,
Yeah.
And I was like, shit, that's good. He's starting to, they're watching their numbers and going, I can't do that. That's crazy.
Or, going into it, because trends are trends. And you see, everybody's got some crazy door trim that's the latest fad, and you're going to see it on the next 5 designs. Okay, what did it take us to go do on that job? Right? So if we're putting an estimate together, we're going to go look at all the hours that we spent. I could track it down to the schedule. Hey, look, we spent 2 guys 3 weeks to go do that. So what are we putting in for the labor dollars?
Yeah.
Right? Is it enough? And so we'll look at that before we put in an estimate to make sure, because we're looking at it in real time, because, hey, that's the same. And once you get enough under your belt, if you're actually doing that, and even then, you don't have to be sophisticated. You can do a basic math. If you're like, oh, shit, that took me 3 weeks and I had John and I had, Chris out there and they cost me X amount of dollars, like, shoot, nowhere close. Right.
Yeah.
But you have to take the forethought to think about that stuff and be able to look at that and be able to kind of put some numbers to it.
And here's the thing. If you do that, you'll be cheaper sometimes than other people.
Yeah.
Because I have a lot of competitors or people that I know that just are like, oh, it's $25,000. And I do some math and I'm like, no, it's 14. If you know exactly and you've job costed and figured it out, you could actually come in cheaper budget wise, and that could afford you that project manager.
Yes.
That unicorn that you're looking for.
Yes.
So tighten it up and you might be able to afford more than you think.
Correct. I think your team also, in talking about team and building up your team and your leadership, right? If you're sharing the numbers with your team, right, your labor dollars, right? We're not even talking about material costs. So my team will know what we have to go spend in materials. Tyler will go know, hey, we got to put an order in. This is how much we had in for the door trim. This is how much we had in for the doors. This is what we had in for baseboard. Like, my team knows that. So when they're calling in orders, they'll call around to a few places. We'll get 4 quotes, right? Who has it? Because they know what the dollars are going to be. Then they know, hey, we have X amount plus this much waste. We've got this many dollars left. And they're making those decisions in the premise of, how are we going to do this for what we have, and can we save the dollars? Because that goes back to margin. It goes back to their bonus. We project bonus on everything. So, and it's not just the team that works on it. It's the whole team. Everybody on the team in our company is subject to that. They get a bonus for the project because everybody touches it at some point. Jen, from the initial call to scheduling inspections to making sure the porta potty's there. If Jen can negotiate the rate down on our porta potties and it's not what we had for 6 months and we save $400, guess what goes back to margin? That then my employees get bonused on.
Do you think everybody's motivated by the bonus?
Yes.
Do you think they're motivated, but I have this struggle where you go, okay, money, 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 money. But then they still can't do it. They still go, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go home. They won't put forth the actual effort to earn the money. But when you tell them there is more money there, they oh, yeah, but can't do it. Have
I
you run into
think
that one?
we have in the past, but I will say that we talk about the bonus piece. We have a monthly meeting and we'll talk about if jobs that are currently in construction are close to maybe not making bonus because we're monitoring that. We know what the margin needs to make on the job in order for everybody on the team to bonus. So that's a motivator because do you want to sit there in the meeting with everybody and because you didn't call and get your portion of it done, now the 7 other people in this room are going to bonus on that? There's an ownership for the team that everybody takes into play.
Who manages the bonus, the bonus versus quality? Because they could slowly start to cut corners or make bad decisions because they're worried about making that money. It's just some people I've dealt with, they're so worried about the money.
Yeah, it's a false motivator.
Yeah, you had a false motivator. There you go. That's the phrase.
Because you think that it's money, but it's not. But again, it goes back to structure and quality, right? If you already have the quality and the standard that's set, which should be long before we're having to redo work. If you don't have a good quality and you're redoing work, and now because we're redoing work, now it's affecting the bonus, then you have a bigger problem. Your bigger problem is your quality, right? What's the standard? What's our standard? And we've talked about it for years, and we didn't even come up with this. This wasn't something that Steve and I did. We were in a meeting one time, and I can't remember who said it, but it was one of our employees that we were talking about an issue on a job, and it was about some pantry shelving that got installed that just looked like garbage. And it had gotten installed a couple days before, and we pulled it up on a daily log, and we're in a meeting, and we're looking at the picture, and it just looks hammered, and it's not great, and you can see exposed nails. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure in the photo you could already tell that one of the shelves wasn't level. Like, it just looked like shit. And one of our employees was like, that's not TCI standard. Well, how is that not ripped down? That is not TCI standard. Go rip it out. And somebody else said it. It didn't take me saying it. It didn't take Steve saying it.
Nice.
And that's what you need. You need people that know what the standard is. And that just comes from you as the top down establishing what the standard is, right?
True.
I could guarantee you that that employee probably heard me ask them to rip something else out because it wasn't our standard. And we developed what that standard is as a team. And now it's very clear, and I feel very fortunate that on our team right now, we have some tenured people that have been here long enough to know what that is. And that doesn't have to come from me anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Because the team knows what it is, but it took a long time to get there.
Yeah. No, I was telling somebody the other day, he's asked me something, I don't remember, but I go, it's a weird feeling. I want to drive away from the project knowing that everything is taken care of. And I don't, with this guy, we're talking about with this guy, I leave and I'm not sure if he's leaving after I leave or if something's going to happen. We got to do that. That's that comes to your standard, and you leave, you set people up, and will they perform?
Will they perform? And I think it goes back to that, you mentioned like pressure, right? And are they going to be okay with that pressure, and are they going to be okay with that standard and implementing that? And I think part of the challenges that we've had in our team and what I've realized is that there are people that can handle pressure, and they're the people that end up thriving working here and working in this industry for that matter, because they can handle pressure. The people who can't handle pressure, what I've experienced is it turns into fear, and then fear turns into either being dishonest or lying.
Yes, the dishonesty and lying slips in there.
And that is, if you work for me, if you break my trust, you don't work here anymore. Guaranteed, I will fire you in a minute.
That, you touched on it because I get that a lot. this dishonesty, this I call them the have truths.
Yes.
So that's why I have direct line to you guys, because I'm out there and I'll say something. I give the project manager the run for and respect that he deserves, and it's his job, and I'm not going to call you with every problem.
Yeah.
But then I start talking to him, and then I talk to you casually or whatever, and I just hear have truths coming back to the office.
Yes.
And those are the guys, and there's more of those than you business owners listening. You need to talk to your subs more, maybe.
You do.
Because you get some feedback about these people out in the field, because there's a lot of have truths. They're saving their own ass, and telling
They
don't
are.
want to get ripped in that meeting, or they don't want to
They don't
explain
want to
themselves.
be, yes, they want to be accountable for their action. And that's the difference between a leader and for somebody else who's going to cave from it. I have a perfect example of that. You called me one day because you're like, hey, this PM is selling a different story on site about why this painter has the wrong color paint. You need to go ask the question. And I asked the question, hey, did you follow our process? Did you send the finish schedule of the correct color paint to the painter in an email?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, did you? Yes or no? I sent it in a text. Show me the text. Oh, it wasn't the finish schedule. You text him the color. You put it in a text and you wrote that. That's not our process. That's not our procedure. And because of that, now I have 45-gallon buckets of paint that are the wrong color for a custom house.
Yeah.
Do you know how long it took me to sell that paint, Jerry? It took me a year at $20 a pop to sell that paint.
Yeah.
It was the most ugly canary yellow ever, and it was supposed to be white, and it was ridiculous. And that guy didn't work for me after that. And that was a perfect example of a sub coming back to me and going, hey, I think your PM is trying to cover his ass.
Yeah.
This isn't right.
Yeah, the have truths are a big struggle out there in the field. Yeah. That sucks.
It totally sucks. And it sucks because you give ownership and you give some kind of reins, right? It's no different than my kids. You give them a little bit of trust. You give them a little bit of freedom, right? Here, I'm sending you off to go run this. I've given you the parameters of how you do it, right? If you want to make a left turn to get to, that street, you can, as long as we end up over here. But I need you to follow this process and these steps in order to work here, to establish that we don't make the same mistakes. We keep our quality up. We keep the standards, okay? As long as you follow that, I don't care how you get there, but you got to follow that. And if you don't, that's where mistakes happen, because most of the time those things are generated because of shit like ordering the wrong color paint. And that's why.
Yeah.
And so it's like we don't do this. I tell my team, a process always comes from something else, and why we do it because it got screwed up the other time. And we've been doing this long enough, and I've paid for dining room tables, and we've paid for a bunch of shit that got screwed up because somebody didn't follow a process. And so it's like, that's why I make you do this. And so I encourage other contractors, share with your team. If you had to pay out for something, tell them why.
Mm-hmm.
Tell them why somebody screwed up, what you had to pay, because I guarantee you they're not going to do that again.
Yeah.
Or they're going to have the forethought of, I'm not going to use that client's brand new entryway table as a workbench.
Yeah.
Because when you bought when it's been there for 2 days and now it's $4,000 to replace that table, right? They're not going to use the client's stuff as a workbench anymore.
And when you have all these standards, like we go to protection of things, right? That's kind of what we're talking about. They better bump their hours up.
Yeah.
These
much
guys
longer
are
is that
afraid.
taking you?
These guys are afraid to bump all these things that we're talking about. The standards, the project managers, they cost money.
Yes.
So you got to you got to charge more. You got to charge more for that,
Yes.
as you should.
Correct.
So
because you're
if
going to pay for it either way. You're either going to
Yeah.
pay for it when you damage it, or you're going to get paid from the client for it.
Yeah.
Which one do you want?
Yeah. We broke a bread warmer in you pull it out of the island. It was $3,500. It was like an $1,800 patch in the ceiling,
Yeah.
And
But
that
now it
happens-
just cost you how much money?
Yeah, it's like, whoa. I mean, some things happen, and now we know from that we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to make sure this, we protect this way or that way. And if that costs more to whoever's paying me, then that's what's going to happen.
Yes.
Because it's not going to be $3,500 more, but it might be $700 or $800 more on that little patch job, because we got to protect and do the right thing.
The time, a little bit of material, some protection, some RAM board.
Because I know people listening to everything we're saying are going to have, money, well, I can't charge, or how do you do that? Dude, you got a job cost like you're saying, and you got to charge. What it is. Math don't lie.
Yes.
Right? What's that guy, what did he say the other day? your bank account doesn't lie.
Oh
What
yeah,
did he say?
your bank account's your report card.
Your report card, right?
Yeah,
So that was super powerful, and I
it
can't wait to
is.
talk to him about that because I thought about that a lot, and it's super true,
Yes.
and you can't blame anybody except yourself.
Yeah,
Your name's on the T-shirt, the check, the bank account, everything.
it's going to tell you. It's not going to lie to you. It's not going to tell you what you want to hear. It's going to tell
Not
you if you're making money or not.
not every client you have is bad.
No.
And maybe it's you.
Yeah.
So smarten up.
Some people, yeah, people don't think that they think that they can't charge for those things, or they think that if they include that, it's going to cost them more money and they're going to lose the job. And that's not, you're talking pennies. You're
Have
talking
you,
pennies on a project that the client's probably not even looking at it that close.
wouldn't you like to get to a place where the project is not sold only on dollar, it's based on the words coming out of your mouth and the value that you bring?
Yes.
And that's what everybody needs to learn how to do, right? If you want to get to that thing.
Yes,
Get to
it's
that
true.
level.
We just posted about this, and you can go back and look at our Instagram. We lost a custom build, and we were told from the client that they negotiated down the fee with a different builder, 5% difference for them. Okay, 5% difference on our
5%.
management fee.
Hmm.
So they were able to negotiate down 5% less than what we were. So they're going with the other builder.
Wow.
And it's interesting because people will come to our office and they'll, when you talk to a client about their list of priorities, I want to get this done. Okay, got it. This is your project. We understand that. Okay, what's important to you from a builder? What's important for you? Well, it's good communication and they know how to schedule and, we know when the project's going to get done, and we'll ask questions like that. And they always answer all the right answers, right? They say that's
That's
what
what's
they want,
important.
right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
important.
yeah.
You go, okay. So then you kind of run down your resume, right? Where you give our spiel of, this is how we document, this is how we communicate, here's our daily logs, and we have owners meetings, and this is how we communicate a schedule. And you'll show all those things to the client. The client's like, yeah, that's exactly what I want, right? And you'll get down to the budget and you'll talk about what it actually costs. And it's interesting because I would say half of the clients, all of a sudden, all the things that they told you before the budget, now are out the window. They don't care. They're gone.
Yeah.
And so it really comes down to knowing who the right client is, because to your point, the right clients that want to build with us, budget's a good factor. It always
Sure.
is. Everybody has
Sure.
a budget. I don't care who you are. But it's what you value along with the build in order to get through the process.
Yeah.
If you're going with the 5% less builder, okay, that's fine. What are you giving up? Are you
Yeah.
giving up an accurate schedule? Are you giving up weekly logs or daily logs? Are you giving up weekly owners meetings? Are you giving up an accurate schedule of when you're going to move in? Right? We'll have clients that'll tell us, yep, we're going to move out for the 6 months of that job. Okay, great. And then they'll negotiate it down, or they'll decide, you know what, I found somebody to do it cheaper for their whole house remodel.
Mhm.
Whereas I know I could deliver and have a whole house remodel done for them in 6 months. They went with the guy who's 10% less than me, but their job took twice as long. So you were out of your house for your kid's entire school year. Okay. You lived in a VRBO for an additional 6 months. What did that cost you? Is it more
Yeah.
than the 10% I was going to charge? What's that worth to you?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny how the main sticker, the big number, will scare people to death. They'll pay more if it's broken up and it's hidden around and they never know the final
real
the real
cost.
cost.
Yes.
I definitely deal with that. Yeah, that's a real thing over the years I've dealt with.
It's such a real thing, and it's such a mental game that it's just like, oh my gosh, I feel like we're just constantly playing with clients sometimes that it's like, okay, this is exhausting.
Yeah. Well, that's why you got to go through all of them, right? Can't
You
win them
do.
all.
You do.
Well,
And
you got a lot of stuff written down on that paper,
I know.
highlights
I was
and
just really
things, and I mean,
into this.
you better pick something and go.
I know, right? Well, I think
That's a
one of
lot.
the things that we had talked about, or we had written down that we wanted to talk about, was we've been talking about leaders. We've talked about knowing numbers. We've been talking about price and all these other things, right? How would you say, how does leadership happen? Like, how do you grow your team? But I think both of us, I feel like we've done well, and we've brought people onto our teams that are in a more tenured leadership position in
Mhm.
both of our companies, right? How do you get there? For somebody who's new, how do you get there with that that leadership runway and that scoreboard? What does that look like? What do you think about that?
For me, it was hard because I was bringing somebody up and I didn't really know how to be a manager or train somebody,
Hmm.
and some of the guys became like a whipping post and I feel bad. And I'm like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
So they've earned their place here for life. But it's not easy. The bringing people up. If you're small and you're bringing somebody up and you're trying to figure out that place in your business, it's not easy.
Yeah.
But you go back to everything that we've been saying, and then you have to learn how to train people. You need to learn how to. It's new for me too. I remember it's like, oh, I don't. What do I do? I figure that he knows what he's doing, but he doesn't.
Yeah.
So yeah, you just gotta look back. It all goes back to the top dog. And
Yeah.
if you can lead by example and learn with that person and have some restraint on your emotions and things like that, especially we go back to ego with men, right? That's the tough one.
Yeah.
You're two men in here arguing about, well, you didn't do this and you didn't do that. And it's hard. It's hard. It's hard for men. And it's just something, if you haven't done it, like I'm excited about the next phase because Will's been with me forever. And I'm excited about the next phase because there's so many things that I want to train the new person on and see how they can do and kind of like it'll help build,
Yeah.
because we're stuck in our ways now,
Yeah.
and we kind of change some things, but like once you've learned how to get through and been through some situations, you can now, my second run, I'll be able to implement more exciting things and but you got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah, it's kind of it's like that trial and error, right? Where you've
Yeah.
got to put something out there for them, and you have to give them the reins a little bit to figure that out. I think something we did recently that I thought was very helpful because I didn't want to be this owner that sat in the way of my employees being able to grow.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's very challenging when you have an operation that is growing. And maybe to your point, you haven't set what the parameters are. You haven't set enough of the processes because you're just moving so fast.
Yeah.
So I always wanted my team to feel like they had runway. And so I knew I had to get out of the way. I knew I had to shed responsibilities. So it's pushing off some of those responsibility pieces and really coaching up my employees to say, I want you to have ownership of this. This is your meeting. I want you to get what you need out of it. I want you to tackle XYZ that we're going to do. You're going to run the meeting. I'm not going to say anything.
But realize they've never done it before.
And be okay with that.
Yeah.
But they've sat in enough and they've seen me do it.
Yeah.
That's where
doing it is so different, right?
Yes. Now it's like, okay, you've learned, you've learned through visual. Now you need to go ride the bike. Here you go. Jump on.
That's the hard one for men is giving up some of those things and letting somebody else do it because it's not going to be exactly how you would have done it.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be okay with the results.
Yes.
And you can't be mad at that person. And
yeah,
they do have to be compensated well if they're going to take over some owner's responsibilities,
mm-hmm.
and they need to you need to have their back
for
when
sure.
they fail and when they need help, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, I always tell my team, right, that I want to know about an issue from you. I don't want to hear about it from somebody else. Goes back to trust.
Yeah.
And honesty. And it's never going to come from me from a place of like, well, how'd you screw that up or what happened? I'm not a yeller as much as my kids think I yell at them. I'm not, that's not my management style. That's not who I am. I'm more, okay, how are we going to fix it? What's the next steps? What are we doing? What do you already got in place? Right? Because I hope you didn't just come with a problem. I hope you have a problem and a solution.
Right.
And so then let's get it fixed. And then we're going to talk about it afterwards of how we got to that problem.
Yeah.
Right? But in that moment, because typically for us, something that happens probably needs a very quick resolution.
Yes.
It's not something you can sit on. If you've sat on it, then it's probably an even bigger problem than it should have been. But I always try to look at it from how are we going to solve it quickly and then how are we going to avoid that the next time.
Yeah.
We did an exercise recently that I thought was very helpful with my team because we had people in more newer roles, more management. Garrett moved up to a lead on site. So he's responsible for that site. He's responsible for, being the point person when, the drywall guy is getting ready to start. And layout and the QC and all those kind of things. And so we sat down in a meeting and we all went through I heard it described as what's the decision dollars, right? How can you make a decision if you don't know how much money is on the table and can I make a decision on that? I always got worried. I would get a phone call of like, hey, the lumber order's $4,000. Can I make that call? Well, your credit card limit's 20,000. So yeah, why are you calling me? Right.
Mm.
So I don't want to be in a meeting and that then holds up the delivery for today because you didn't get an answer from me in the next hour. And now it's not going to be delivered till tomorrow. So we sat down and we had this discussion as a team of what everybody's buying power was.
Hmm.
So if you are a lead on site, your buying power is $5,000. Anything below $5,000, if you're the lead, you already know the budget. You know how much we're going to spend on that.
I trust you at this point
I
enough.
trust you at this point,
Yeah.
right? If it's under $5,000, then place the order.
Yeah.
Because you already know what it's going to cost me. You know what it's going to cost to go build the job, right? You're already talking about it. We've already talked about it before we started.
Yeah.
So why do you need to call me?
Right.
Right? If it's over $5,000, then you need to make a phone call. And then
Yeah.
it's why is it over $5,000?
Yeah. And this when they start making these types of decisions, it starts to build confidence.
Yes.
And they become their own leaders, and they feel that ownership of the project, and
Correct.
And that's how they go from running 1 to 2 to 3 to dealing with all the adversity of subs and things like that when it's theirs and they feel that.
Correct. So I think if you have employees and you're listening to this, ask yourself the question, do they know what their buying power is? Do they know how much they can go spend of your money? Do they know that? Because I would guarantee, when I thought about it in that way, if that takes 3 less phone calls, how much money did that just save me?
Yeah, and then
It's
you
crazy.
start because they'll call and I go, what are you getting? Why?
Yeah.
What's and I start questioning it.
Yeah.
And you're going where?
Yeah.
Why didn't you go to the other place? You know,
And now they're already in the truck and they're
it's a
driving
whole-
there. Now they're turning around and now
a
you just
whole
wasted
thing.
time,
It's
right?
a whole thing.
Versus
Yeah.
like, hey, I had this plan. And you have to give that up a little bit.
Yes.
If you're gonna have a team who's gonna be bought into that and they're going to be leaders. You either have leaders on the team that are gonna make things happen, or you're just gonna have a bunch of messengers that are just delivering things to you, and you're now deciphering all these things. How are you gonna grow if your team is just messengers to you?
Yep. No, you don't want that. That's for sure. That we do that. I go over that a lot. It's like if I wanted a guy like that, I'd hire him for half the price of you. And,
I got an intern sitting in there. He'll go do that. He can just run around town and go wherever I tell him to go.
Yeah, you're in charge. So
Yes.
so do it. And don't a lot of these guys in the sub trades, or I don't know, in general, I sometimes have a couple guys that they won't move unless they're told put one foot in front of the other.
Mm.
And you got to break that cycle of them. And that's a hard one because some guys are wired a little differently, or maybe you've scared them into that. Maybe it's you.
They're order takers.
Yeah, they're order takers. And so you've got to be able to find out who that guy is, if he can use his own brain, or if he's a good person, maybe you can train him to not do that.
It's interesting. I think it goes back to how we started this episode and this topic. We've had a lot of people who are order takers that worked for us. And what I notice is the common theme of order takers are not hustlers.
No.
Order takers are not hustlers. Order takers want to show up. They want you to have all the material there for them. They just want to show up. They want to do exactly what that is. When they're finished with that task, they're going to ask you to do the next one.
That's the same guy that says he's motivated by a bonus but really can't do it.
Exactly. So are you going to hire the order taker or are you going to hire a hustler? Because a hustler's going to go work and he's going to go tell you, hey, by the way, I saw that we bought this mud here, but actually, I know my buddy down the street can get that cheaper for us. Can I go call him?
On a large team, I think you need order takers to produce for maybe your leads. Because I have some order takers that I don't want them to think of anything else. Go and do that. And they go, and it's done. And we've set it up for them.
But they work hard.
They work hard.
That's still
too.
a hustler, in my opinion. That's still a definition of a hustler.
They'll just go home at 1 and not go, what else does it need to be done today? Jerry only said to do these 3 things.
Mm-hmm.
My phone's ringing right now, and I think it's somebody asking me where to go. And we'll see. Does he go home or does he call Will and go, where else do you want me to go? Because some guys will just go home. Oh, you didn't answer, and I was done over here,
So I'm just going to go.
Home. Yeah.
That drives me crazy.
Yeah, well, that's half of the people.
I can't.
It's interesting.
That
to
drives
have
me
a
crazy.
diverse group like that.
It does. And I'm all for the order taker piece, but I need you to see the bigger picture, right? And I think that's where my management style and how we run our team is I always, whether you're the order taker or you're the field manager, I want everybody to know what everybody's part is within the puzzle
Hmm.
because it keeps you from doing that. Should I go home? Or maybe that slight question of, hey, I knew that there was that problem over that other job. I'm going to call Will and see if,
Yeah.
do they need help over the Smith's house? I heard they were behind over there.
Yeah. There's those guys.
Right?
There's
And
the
just thinking about that a little bit.
yeah.
I just that little extra piece because we're a
I
team.
went through it with them, and they'll go,
Oh, I didn't
"Oh,
think of it.
yeah.
Oh.
He didn't answer the phone.
Oh,
Oh, yeah."
rather than just maybe like, I don't know, taking lunch and cruising by and
Yeah.
just check in.
Uh-uh.
That drives me crazy. And I think that, again, it goes back to like how we are as owners and leaders, right? And I look at it, I can't fault somebody for not doing it the way I would do it, but that would be what I would do. And so I
So
look at
I
it from like trying to train up the team of like, think about it outside your own bubble.
So I brought him in, was last year whenever I did a review, and I just told, I said, "What do you think you're here for? Why are you here? What is your role?" And the guys that were order takers, I told them,
Yeah.
"I don't expect you to do this, this, and this, but when you're here, you got to burn and run like the wind.
Yeah.
And when you go to help somebody else on their job, because maybe your job you can't work today for whatever reason, you need to run like the wind. Because if you're not doing any of that, then what are you here for?
Yeah.
I already got guys running this and running that and doing this thing. You are this type of guy.
Yeah.
You're a whatever. And that seemed to actually work. That seemed to help some of their brains and also help me from expecting more than what he was capable of.
Mm.
After X amount of years, you know what somebody's capable of. You try to push them and get them to, and they just kind of fight, even though they say, "Yeah, I want it." They just don't.
But
So
then they don't.
once I said, "These are the roles, and this is what I want and I expect out of you,"
Yeah.
I've seen a lot better results in production and everything with
That's
that.
hard. It's setting your expectations and your standard.
Yeah, but I've got 15 guys or 13 to 15 guys, so everybody's kind of got their thing.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's figuring out what motivates that particular individual and that employee.
Yeah.
And again, to your point, not everybody's a leader.
No.
Not everybody's a leader. Can't have 15 chiefs.
No.
Got to have some Indians.
Yeah, I got them. Got a few.
Yeah. It's so true. Well, I think this has been a really good episode.
No, hold on. You got a lot of stuff highlighted
Oh, you
there.
don't like any more of this?
Yeah. What else? What else do you
Oh,
got? No,
man.
don't skip to the end.
Oh, just kidding. Okay,
That
Jerry
looks
wants
like
more. Let's see. What
you
else do
did
I got?
some
We talked
work.
about decisions. We
Mhm,
talked about, let's see here. What else we got? I wrote down that, I wrote this one. I was when I was researching the episode and I was making some notes. I wrote down that pressure builds diamonds, fear builds liars. I read that one. I was like, oh.
Pressure builds diamond, fear builds liars. Yeah, that's true. That goes back to the
Goes back to the
guy.
half truths, right?
Yeah.
And what that looks like, right? And then that you can learn a system or a process, but you can't learn urgency and pride in your work and ownership, right?
Yeah, that's an internal kind of thing.
Motivator. I think it goes
Yeah.
back to like your point of like what's a leader and what's not a leader.
Yeah.
Right.
There's some guys that like I've had come to me that were, I don't want to say broken, but they were just just guys that had just been going through the motions of the trade for so long, like we do in sub trades. It's A, B, C, D over and over again.
Yeah.
But then I brought them in and introduced them to a culture, and they were part of something, and they let their guard down.
Mm-hmm.
And once they felt like they were part of a team and something, they started to open up and really become an asset.
Yeah.
So I think there is some guys that
You have
can
to
do that.
teach how the business works in order to do it. That's what I wrote down. Like you have to teach how the business works in order to perfect that.
Yes.
Right. And
Yes.
beyond to your point of just like, well, this is just a sheet of drywall, right?
Right.
Well, no, actually you got to load it in the truck, then you got to unload it. How many times are we going to handle it? And
Yep.
you don't think about it like that.
Yeah.
Or you don't sometimes.
Yeah, if you're just an order taker or whatever.
Exactly. Right. I think that's part of it too. We talked about delegation and authority, what that looks like, how you get out from being the hero as the business owner, right? You're the person that they call, the world's on fire. We jokingly do it at the end of this episode every time of who's more important, right?
Right.
I think that's also kind of a joke on us too, of like how many people really need us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think there's this sense of we're so important, right? But the majority of it is because of our team.
Yeah.
We're not able to do it because of our team. You and I aren't able to sit here on Tuesdays
Oh, yeah.
and have a podcast if we did not have the team that we had.
I'm so fortunate to do all the things that I've done and to have the team. I mean, it's amazing once you get to that point where you go, "Oh, I have something here."
Yes.
It's a pride, you know?
Yes.
And I hope everybody gets to feel that because it's for real.
It is. I feel the same. Somebody asked me that because we've been doing this for a little bit now. And I said the same thing. I said, I feel very fortunate and I feel proud of the team because we've had people on the team now that have pushed and grown, and I've encouraged and, have had to kind of this internal struggle of like, okay, I'm going to be a leader and I'm going to do this, right? And you kind of are like, okay, yeah. And you're like, you're waiting and you're waiting. And it's so nice to see them achieve that. And then these building blocks that you put in place, right? And I remember having this conversation with an employee where new to the team, didn't quite see the vision, super upset. I don't know if I want to work here and everything. I'm like, you got to give me time. You got to give me time to get the team in place. You got to give me time to get the vision and this built out. Haven't been doing this long enough, but you got to give me time.
Yeah.
And so it's been really cool to see that and to see somebody stick with it. And it's like, this is what I want to see. This is where I want to go. Are you on board?
For me, what the team does is motivate me to be better and provide more for them.
Yeah.
Once you have the team out there, you've set them in motion, you can now go out and kick ass in the rest of the world.
Yeah.
You can go get more jobs. You can take care of little problems and little things and do all the cost analysis and all these things that are so necessary. You need to switch over to that. That's what that's done for me. I see a lot of people ask me, well, how does this company or that company operate? And I go, well, when the team's out there, they don't go fishing. They go back to the office and start working, right?
Yeah.
Like when we're done here, we're going to go back out into the world.
Yeah.
And it's going to cost, everything has a cost. This hour and a half or so that we spend here is going to cost me an hour and a half later today at some point. And I'm fine with that. But yeah, you gotta stay on it. You gotta stay on it. ABC, always be closing, whatever that is for you, right? Whatever, you got to get out and get deals done while the team is providing for you.
Correct. And wanting to fuel that, right? Is there a certain point where Steve and I could just be like, you know what, screw it. Like, we're done, right? But that doesn't cross my mind because I look at what the team is doing, what the potential the team has to go. And to your point, like that's my motivator, right?
Yeah.
It's not about like how rich can I get? It's not about that. It's like how can we keep building the team, right?
Put
how can
another
I pay,
level into this?
Yes, how can I pay my employees more, right? Like how can I pour into them, right? To have their retirement, to not work till they're 75. Like, just like that's a motivator for me that it never crossed my mind when I became a business owner that would be a motivator for me. I saw a need in an industry and I wanted to be able to see my family more. And I didn't want to be driving all over God's green earth to go run a job wherever my company told me I had to go for 2 to 5 years, right? That's why I did this. And then it's interesting now because my motivator is I still like the work, but I like doing it for the employees.
Yeah.
Right? And then the people that are affected beyond that, right? I take it very personal when a job drops out the board because it's not just my team that's impacted. It's Jerry's team, right? Yeah. It's my electrician's team. It's my plumber's team. Because you're banking on the fact that TCI is going to do a certain amount of revenue, which means it's going to be a certain amount of jobs for you. Like, I take that very serious because people are banking on us to get work.
Yeah.
We've established ourselves in the market. And if we're not producing, that's a problem.
There's one company I do, my biggest revenue, one particular individual company, they dropped about 60% last year in 2025. And I felt it. And I was like, holy shit, like what? And I've been working for them 10 years.
Yeah.
And they're a big company. And so I started calling over there, like, what's going on? And they're like, no, like, it's not you. You didn't do anything and we're not hiring you. we don't have a lot of work, and we just retired one guy and laid off 2 project managers. They have like 10 superintendents and laid off like 2 of them and all this stuff. And I was like, oh shit, like
Yeah,
you when that slowdown or somebody, it, we all take it personally, the
we
trickle
do.
down effect.
Yeah.
You go, wow, wow, wow.
But I think if you're a motivated owner and you're doing this and you're employing people for the right reasons, that's something that weighs on you,
Yeah.
right? Owners get paid the most because we deal with the most uncertainty,
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah.
right? We're the
Yeah.
ones that are awake at night wondering, are we going to land that job,
Yeah,
right?
hoping to God, having conversations about it, double, triple thinking about that budget or that estimate you sent or whatever it is,
That conversation you're going to have with the owner tomorrow, and are we going
Yeah.
to be able to sell this, and what about this budget check-in and all
Oh
those
my
things,
God.
right? I mean,
Oh
an
my God.
employee gets to show up and they know they have a job every day,
Yeah.
right? As the owner, you don't know. You
Yeah.
have a job, you have a business today, you might not have a business tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Like you get paid the most to deal with the unknown.
Man, I say stuff to people and I cringe. I go, oh, did I just fuck that up? Like what?
Because you care.
Like, or something that happens we say on here, I go, oh, is somebody going to hear that? Or we'll go out and shoot videos. Like Spencer and I went to shoot this Instagram thing like a couple weeks ago. And I said, fucking douchebag. And he's like, oh, that's going to be a good one.
And then
I
you're
was
like,
later that night, I was like, maybe we don't put that on. It's like one thing saying it here and nobody listens, but if I put it on a reel, you guys are going to hear it for a month or 2 or whatever. And
replayed and
you know,
shared.
and it's like, my dad or somebody's like, you shouldn't have said something like that. They see it differently than like you would, or, and I'm just like, oh. So things like that happen to me all the time, that could cost an employee a job or something if I start mouthing off and all that stuff. So yeah, we have that responsibility and that pressure to keep it going and build something for everybody long term.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to, again, making good leaders that can help keep growing your business so that you can do that,
Yeah.
and bringing your team up, because they're only going to care as much as you care.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. What else you got written down?
That was it. Those are we covered all the major highlights.
That was it, huh?
I know. That's a lot.
Well, I mean, what can we leave everybody with that they would say, man, that was a good video. I'm going to send it to everybody else.
Ooh,
That was a good episode.
I think the big overarching theme is that you have to know your numbers so that you
Yep.
can empower your team,
Mm-hmm.
give them the right knowledge,
Yep.
give them
And
the
if
right
you
info.
do that job costing, you'll be surprised at how much money you had probably
Yes.
to purchase that.
Or how much
Whatever.
money you didn't have and you actually
Yeah.
took a loss on something.
Yeah, one way
Again,
or
back
the
to your
other.
bank account.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? But I truly think that you have to know your numbers. You have to empower your team. You have to tell your team where you're going, how the roadmap that you've gotten to get there. They might take a few more left turns,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to be okay with that. But as long as we're all getting to the same destination at roughly the same time,
Yeah.
that's the end goal. And you really have to have that open and honest conversation. I think that's what makes good leaders within your company.
And the brand it'll bring in good talent.
Yes. If it's coming from, if you are setting the standard of what this is,
Yeah.
this is how we perform, this is what our finished product looks like, this is how we handle situations, from conflict resolution to, we talked about protection, we
Mhm.
talked about, cleanliness standards, all those things. If you're setting that standard from the top, right,
Yeah.
it will transfer to your team.
Well, and if somebody's if you're looking for that unicorn or that unicorn is looking for a job,
Yes.
you need to present for that, right?
Yes. They don't
I
join.
want that good person, that unicorn. Well, that unicorn isn't going into a dark and dreary office with
No.
old hunting antlers on the wall and all this. So I went into a guy's office a couple of weeks ago. The door was locked. It was 1:00 in the afternoon. Door on a weekday. Everything. Like, who the hell wants to work for you?
He's out fishing.
Yeah, well, he was in there. So, oh yeah, and I go in there, and it's just a mess. Like you guys got to present for what you want to buy.
Yes.
Yeah,
you want the unicorn to come work for you. They're not
Yeah.
going to join chaos. You got to have a process.
Yeah,
You got to have a
and
system. You got to have a standard.
And just like what's his name? Casavan, he came in and he said, I've got this new office and he's so
Yes.
proud of it.
Yeah.
And the amount of people that are going to walk into that door
Yeah.
that before nobody was going to his house to look for a job.
Nope.
They'll go, I'm going down to their office tomorrow. And I guarantee they walk in there, they go, wow, this place is nice and it's professional. This is the part of the team I want to be a part of.
Yes.
So these guys, even as small, like they have, look where we're at now up here in Sunrise. There's thousands of offices here. Present well because people still will come in looking for a job.
Yes.
And then you can, because the good ones don't just take jobs.
No.
They're interviewing you as much as you're interviewing them. They don't want to see if you're getting it. They don't want to get involved with you.
Yeah, they're looking around. They're what's word on the street, right? How many people have called you or talked or been like, hey, what's going on over at what's going on over at TCI, right?
Yeah.
What's
they're
up,
they're
how do I
trying to
get
get
in there?
interviews over here all the time, these guys. So
But back to what are you giving off? What are you projecting?
Yep.
What are you putting out as your standard? And the same goes to clients, right? It's the same thing. What you're putting out there for who you want to hire is also going to attract the right clients for you.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Are you running it
Trickle
out of your
down.
house? Are you, got janky old truck that leaks oil in the driveway? It's the same thing. It's
Sometimes
the same
you got to
standard.
put that money out there first. Everybody goes, well, when I get to this point, I'll get this. No, the old saying, spend money to make money, this is pretty true sometimes.
It is.
So.
It is.
Yeah.
I think that's so true.
Okay, well.
Overarching, go buy trucks, know your numbers. Make sure you know your numbers before you buy the truck.
Right.
That's the closing of the show.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. You already know you're getting blown up over there. Are you more important than me today?
I
you are
got
for
problems.
sure. You got problems. So yeah.
This is no good.
Oh,
no
no.
good. 9 missed calls and 10 texts.
Oh shit. Yeah, you are
11,
definitely
22.
more. I have 2 texts. So yeah, one of them's from my kid's school, so I don't even know if that counts.
Oh no. Oh man.
Jerry's gotta go. Well, please, everybody, like, subscribe, but share it. Send the episode to your friends. It's been really cool watching all the traction and the feedback. People responding back to us, commenting on the show, sharing clips, commenting on reels, all these other things. It's so cool to see everybody reaching out and putting the word out there about the show. So I want to say thank you to everybody who listens to the show, has passed it on. The feedback's been great. Keep it up. We're still looking for our sponsor.
Yeah.
So we got some feelers out. So the more we like, more they subscribe, it will help for that. So then Jerry and I can stop paying for the show.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Awesome. Thanks,
All right.
guys.
Bye.